more banking out.
It's time to go in the zone. Here's your host, Brandon Kravitz.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. We are live on 96.9 The Game, streaming everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. You are in the zone, the show of the Orlando sports fan. Your host, Brandon Kravitz, here, joined by my co-host and producer. He is Sweet Tea, Tyler Karen. Hit us up on the Mills Air text line 50857 is how you can find us. Also on the iHeartRadio talkback, just tap that microphone icon when you're listening to us on the iHeart app. Fire away. You have 30 seconds to lay out whatever your opinion may be. We have Magic Mavericks tickets to give away as our prize of the day. That game coming up on Thursday at the Kia Center. Your shot to win at 4:50 p.m. during tea time, presented by Wonder Fan. We are streaming live on Twitter right now at Brandon Kravitz. At 96.9 Game On is how you can find the video feed. If you are watching on video, just know we are going to cut off at the end of the first segment, but we'll be live right here on 96.9 The Game and iHeartRadio until 6:30 tonight. 6 to 6:30, all Magic coverage as we get you set for Magic versus Hornets. We're also going to replay a piece of the conversation between Jake Chapman and Dwight Howard during the third quarter of last night's game. Really cool to be able to sit there and watch those two go back and forth last night. I got a chance to shake Dwight's hand for the first time in 14 years. So it was kind of a cool, everything's kind of coming back home kind of moment, Sweet Tea. That was a special one. The Magic take on the Hornets tonight. We'll be back in the Kia Center studios, but basically, if you have your radio on between now and 10 p.m., you will either hear my voice, Tyler's voice, or Jake Chapman's voice. Last night was really special.
And that's exactly how we want it. Is one of us three yappers on your radio dial. How about this? And Dwight Howard, as you mentioned, we'll replay that a little bit later on. When he shook his hand, did his hand swallow yours completely? Did it feel like one of those handshakes? I didn't get the opportunity to shake his hand, just kind of the madness of bringing us back from break. He was a couple chairs down, so I didn't get to shake his hand. But I do remember, I don't know if it's Worldwide Sports or one of these sports places where something they have is these basketballs that have the hand imprint of NBA players. And I remember maybe it was All-Star Weekend. That could have been it. And so I would have been 12 at the time up here at the convention in Orlando for NBA All-Star Weekend, and putting my hand up to some of those players and saying, wow. Now, that was when I was about 4'0" and a little chunky, just a little chunky middle schooler. Now, I got some height to me. I don't have these huge hands, but I'm a larger individual. My hands are larger than average. I would have been curious how I sized up with a 7-foot Dwight Howard now compared to when I was 12 years old. Didn't get the chance to do it.
Well, a little bit more so now, but still, it is amazing. It makes you appreciate just how athletic the current athletes are, the guys that are still in the NBA, because you stand next to Dwight Howard and you go, how could this guy not give you minutes in the NBA? He looks like he's still in phenomenal shape. He still looks young. I mean, he's still younger than me, and I don't consider myself an old person yet. But it was really cool to see him there and to get the reaction from the crowd that I never even really thought was a question as to whether or not fans would cheer him. We had a bit of a glimpse into that Game 6 last year in the playoffs when he was shown on the screen. Fans were pretty exuberant about it. You also had Laker fans that were there last night, and their memory of Dwight is him winning a championship with the team in the bubble. So everybody there liked Dwight to some degree. And of course, you're going to have those that have some animosity still, for people that are younger than me, around in between our ages. I'm in my upper 30s, you're in your mid 20s. For people that were there last night, people that are listening right now, that are in that in between, that grew up in Orlando, I try and be sympathetic because I'm someone that's like, yeah, it sucked at the time, but get over it, move on. And I've heard Jake Chapman say the same thing for the last couple of days. When you experience those formative moments as a sports fan, it's hard to shake those. It's hard to shake that loss that we talk about every so often on this show, where you're crying yourself to sleep at night because you're 12 years old and all you wanted was for your team to win a championship. It matters significantly more to you at that stage in your life. Your superstar that you follow, like for me, if Cal Ripken would have up and left in 1997, would have left the Orioles for the Yankees or something, I'd be devastated. And I don't know that I would ever get over that. So if you're in that range, now if this happened and you were already 40 years old, I can say confidently you need to get over it. But if you were a kid that experienced that, you had the joy of opening up that Dwight Howard jersey on Christmas morning and, all that stuff, I can understand where it would take a minute to get over that. And hopefully last night was therapeutic for you.
Dwight has had some. He's been in the media with some off-court stuff over the years, but when you look at his career and the individual spanning the last 25 or so ish years, if you're an NBA fan, you're probably a fan of Dwight Howard in one way or another, regardless of how diehard you are. Obviously, Dwight in Orlando, there's a special connection there. There always will be, and that's why you're starting to see these steps of Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. Dwight kind of hinting at he would love to have his number 12 jersey retired up there next to the 32-6 at the Kia Center, and really sketching his name into Orlando Magic history for good in that regard. But just NBA fans in general, if you're at a game and you see Dwight on the big screen, hey, that's Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard was a huge name for so long, for so many of our NBA lives. Down the line, if you're at a game in an opposing arena and it shows Giannis on the big screen, you're not gonna boo. It's got to be, hey, that's Giannis. That's the type of figure that Dwight Howard was at one point in his NBA career. Was one of the league's best, one of the league's faces, one of the league's superstars. And that's a cool experience to be a part of.
I mean, think about it like this. I think people forget just how popular he was. In 2012, Dwight Howard led the NBA in all-star voting.
Yeah.
He had 1.6 million votes. Let me read you some of the other names that were in the all-star game in 2012. Dwayne Wade, Derrick Rose, Carmelo Anthony, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Dwight Howard had more all-star votes than all of them. He was so. I think, when you look back on his career, he was just so lost as a person. When he came into the league, he was super religious. He was spreading the gospel. Then all of a sudden, he became more social with the ladies. And I think his demeanor changed. I think people within his life were pulling him in different directions. And keep in mind, this is somebody that came into millions of dollars at the age of 18, 19 years old that was still trying to figure himself out because he's changed drastically. He dropped a JC last night on the broadcast, the Lord's name in vain.
Shout out to JC.
This is a guy that was preaching gospel to people like Jonathan Isaac at the beginning of his career. He has gone through changes within his personality. We've seen him in his later stages when he was in the NBA playing more like a Dennis Rodman role with green hair. He's been all over the place. Stan Van Gundy impressions and playing the villain. And I haven't seen anybody in the league in a while play this sort of all these different characters and masks. And to me, it's just somebody that's figuring themselves out. My wife asked me last night, she's like, you sat next to Dwight, you had a chance to, I talked to him briefly off the air, but she was like, what was he like? Is he a complete weirdo? Because that's the way that he has portrayed himself over the last several years. And I'm like, he seemed pretty normal to me. I think he's just a guy that is just now, which is why he was so emotional last night. I think it's taken him a while, as it takes a lot of us a while, to figure himself out. It seems like that's happening now.
Well, think about this, too. Dwight Howard wasn't the first 18, 19-year-old fresh out of high school player to come into the league. He wasn't the first. certainly far from the last. Now, you have to do the year of post high school now before entering your name into the NBA draft. But the era of the one and done, the era of the I am 23 years old and I'm on year 5 of my NBA career, it's more common now than it ever has been. So I saw some comments out there of like talking about Dwight coming into the league young and how he needed to figure some stuff out about himself. And look at the NBA now. That's all what these guys are. Is they're all 10-year vets by the time they hit 28. Well, it wasn't as common back then, too. The amount of resources, the community of it is way more active now than what it was then.
I mean, he talked about it last night. Just simply the presence of the training facility is something that he did not have access to. So he was working out more so on his own. He was making meals on his own. He's trying to figure all of that stuff out. Now everything is done for you. He said it last night on the broadcast. Your life as an NBA player now is so much easier because all you have to worry about is playing basketball. That wasn't the case then. And I do think those systems are in place now, which is why we're not going to get a 30 for 30 10 years from now about how millionaires in the NBA went broke again. But we did get that recently because there were no systems in place for that. And I think Dwight was one of the last of that breed of athlete that came into the NBA and they were like, here's a bunch of money, figure it out, kid. And he was, and some do, he was not mature enough for that.
There are athletes now and young kids in the league that get that paycheck and go a little crazy. They have advisors telling them that, yeah, hey, you shouldn't go that. There are more people in place that try to manage your lifestyle, your money, your food, this and that. So again, the difference of time. You mentioned the training facility. You will never hear anyone that has come through Orlando in the last year, and especially last year being the 35th year of Orlando Magic basketball and having these former Magic players once a week, almost every home game. The Magic were honoring one of their former players, and they all said the same thing about the training facility. I would never leave. Look at this place. It's not because these guys haven't had extreme wealth or haven't seen extreme facilities, but back then it was a gym. It was a gymnasium. That was your training facility. If you ever have the opportunity, if you're ever in the area, there is a practice gym in the
Kia Center. You see it when you're going through the corridors, when you're entering the arena.
It still says the Advent Health Training Center or whatever. It's a basketball court. That's what training facilities were. This training facility now, when former players say, I would never leave this place, you could comfortably live in that training center that you have in place now that everyone has.
They have beds. They have full-time chefs. They have the nicest gym you could ever go to. Lap pools. They have hyperbaric chambers. Dwight was freaking out last night because he was talking about how they have walk-in closets.
Yeah,
they all have their own walk-in closet. You could very much live there. Interesting to hear the perspective, and I thought I got the impression that Dwight was campaigning to have his jersey retired.
Oh, 100%.
It wasn't just me that heard that.
No, I was pretty much the whole time. Full transparency, I didn't see much of the third quarter last night when the Magic went on that historic run, just because I'm sitting there listening to Jake and Dwight in their conversation. Not a ton of play-by-play going on during best man.
I don't think Jake called one play in the third quarter.
It's no fault. When you have Dwight in that setting, you're gonna talk to Dwight on that historic night. So you got Ben Spector of the GA. He's taking pictures. He's promoting on social media. I'm taking quotes for us to get out there on social media. And one of the quotes that I have, I'll paraphrase it really quick here, was something that I just mentioned of Dwight saying how much of an honor it was to be retired into the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but he clearly alluded to,
I got it.
Hopefully one day, number 12 will be up there with 32-6.
Hopefully one day, 12 will be up there with 32-6.
There we go. I don't even have to paraphrase. That's a direct quote.
That's a tough one to remember. That's a nice lengthy.
It was, I think that's where I said, nope, okay, that's one of the ones. When you're taking quotes like that, you just say, forget all this fluff. It's all good stuff. But this is one of the quotes here. So I think Dwight clearly campaigning, and rightfully so. But it shows the growth. It shows the connection. It shows that anything from the past, any bad feelings, it's been put to bed, that this is a healthy relationship between Dwight and the Magic.
and that we should want to continue to celebrate that.
And the fact that last night went as well as it did for all parties involved, I'd be shocked if that jersey retirement doesn't happen at some point soon. Do you think, if you had to guess, because it's going to happen, now they put him in the Magic Hall of Fame, obviously that by itself says we're good now. And if you're going to retire Shaq's jersey, then you got to retire Dwight's. Do you do it next season? Do you try and wait until the 40th year anniversary, which is like 4 years away? Or are you waiting too long at that point? I wonder there's always thought and strategy put into this stuff. I wonder if they just say, hey, now that you're in the Hall of Fame, in the Magic Hall of Fame, they might get inducted into the actual Hall of Fame. Then maybe next year would be the time to do it. I'd say if you're going to do it, just do it. I think next year, but I could see them waiting a couple of seasons just to kind of hype up the promotional value of it.
Yeah, we'll see. You don't want to clump too many of these too far or too close together, rather. The interesting thing here, last year when Shaq was retired, and we had the conversation of, okay, who's coming next? Is it going to be Dwight? Is it the number one to honor Penny and T-Mac? Well, both Penny and T-Mac are already in the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. Penny was inducted in 2017, T-Mac in 2018. Is that kind of a sign of, hey, maybe those guys get the nod first of a jersey retirement before Dwight does? I don't know. I think it's an angle. I wouldn't put too much weight into any of it. At the end of the day, Dwight might be the first of any of them. I don't know if T-Mac is in the Hall of Fame yet. Dwight might be the first Hall of Famer of the three. So again, another feather in the cap of Dwight Howard.
I would think Tracy is in the Magic Hall of Fame
Let me
already.
look that. Tracy is in the Magic Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Both him and Penny are, but the actual basketball
No,
Hall
I think
of Fame.
Tracy's in the actual Hall of Fame too.
Let's see. I have Penny up here. Let me see. Tracy is
5, 4, 3.
Yes,
2.
Tracy was
Got
inducted
it.
in 2017. Penny is not. And he is a nominee for the class of 2025. So we'll see. Who knows?
Well, I was watching a little bit of ESPN this morning, and the first thing that popped up was a conversation about the LA Lakers and how the sky is falling. And I want to talk about that, the national angle of this and how Paolo and Franz are viewed from their contemporaries. All of that coming up next right here on In the Zone.
With today's Magic Minute, I'm Jake Chapman.